What is real is a subject to perception. We give it importance, it will become real. It will become real. We don't give it importance, we shift our attention, then that will wither away, something else will become more real. It's always like that. It may feel literally made out of thin air, totally and utterly etheric. But because a sheer attention gives it a life, that's what is beyond comprehension of the average mind.
So my question is about my process and consciousness expanding into different realms. You also mentioned that different levels of reality before in your darshans. And then there's something particular about, I would like to ask you about Pitroloka, about the realm of the ancestors. So there's a strong connection, just a little bit of background, with my grandmother from one side. And even though I've only met her 5 times in my life, she was in Indonesia, she passed away already. And I'm in Germany, and also we couldn't communicate a lot, but now there's a strong, she's there a lot, and words cannot really grasp this, as you know. It's just, yeah, me trying to explain now. And so I'm very grateful for that, and there's also this process that I heard you talking about also in a video about me realizing how much I have hurt beings and people, and still also of, yeah, non-noble thoughts I have. And she's really but there's this process that I just going on my knees, and realizing and just humbling me really much. And I'm very grateful for that. And then at the same time, where I would love to have some guidance is that there's some kind of feeling that the mind makes stories out of it, or somehow there's this doubt somehow, is this real or not? And then also there's tendencies, as you said, and on the first night with this beautiful question of Mohammed about inner guidance and the mirrors, hall of mirrors in psychic tendencies. So there's strong tendency also to know things better or be in competition. There's some kind of knot somehow, and yeah, so I would love your guidance on one point, the Vedic perspective of the realm of the ancestors, because I feel there is some connection and something I need to, some kind of heritage I have to, was given to me by my grandmother, so that I can somehow help people in some way, and how to connect with her. And when I sometimes see for those topics, like for example in social media, then there's a lot of things I don't know if I can, is it this new agey thing, or what is this Vedic perspective on this? So yeah, that, and yeah, and this other layer of, yeah, these tendencies.
Let's look at it how you presented it, so the realm of the ancestors. Vedic perspective on this very clear. every realm needs to have appeasement, needs to receive something, needs to receive some offering in whatever way, whatever form. If it doesn't, then some undesirable things begin to form, potentially. When it comes to the realm of the ancestors, again, this, to break it down into the language that we now share, we speak. All these various accumulated karmas, I could speak about it as family, tribe, and certain unfulfilled aspirations, desires, all in a form or very subtle way projected somehow. And we don't just inherit property, sometimes we inherit more in the form of these projections. We inherit these unfulfilled aspirations, unfulfilled desires. But at the level of settling down the affairs, because really, it may sound a bit clinical at first, this boils down to this, settling down the affairs. Settling down the affairs is the very important concept from the Vedic point of view. So that we are free of unnecessary burdens, so that we fulfill the very purpose of why we're here. Otherwise, our life is not just burdened by what we are faced with already, which is already a plenty. But on top of that, there are these additional invisible strings attached that connects us to these unfulfilled transactions in the form of these deeply made connections. It's as it were those who pass on, and now from the point of view of this, let's say, time-space convention, in terms of no longer share this realm, they are in the realm of the ancestors. In other words, those who came before us. That needs to be settled down. So periodically, and there are days for that, there is a phase, when this is honored, a candle lit, a prayer uttered. In Vedic culture, it's called tarpana. This is where actually coconut water or water is offered. Water. It's as if quenching the thirst. It's all also very subtly, of course, water, because it's a lunar realm. It's not the realm of the prana, because there's no life, there's no prana, which is ruled by the sun. This is the realm of the so-called underworld, realm of those who have gone, and it is ruled by another deities and another qualities. So the qualities that is ruling this realm is watery, lunar. So this is why water is offered, even though lighting up a candle is not a wrong gesture. It's perfectly okay, perfectly fitting. This is important to understand, that it's just, and this can be performed on the level of remembrance, at the level of that what just goes through the heart as that wave of emotion, wave of that connection. But equally important is that we do not try to form any connection that we take into our day-to-day interactions, into our day-to-day life. simply because this is not really what it is about. Whatever there is might have been as feels as if not fully experienced, not fully savored. Very often, in fact, with grandparents, very often with grandparents more than with parents, because our grandparents, many of us lose grandparents, right? Obviously, before we have that chance to fully appreciate that time, and because of the other circumstances. But that does not mean that because we have certain nostalgia and certain, like, let's say, sense of that, what may come across as unfulfilled connection, that means that we need to go there and try to do something. All that is required is to hold very, very warmly in the heart that what that connection represents. Because this connection really is not with regard to someone here physically or not. This is another very important understanding. Because our spirit is never physically here. It's a temporal manifestation. But the spirit of those who have departed did not depart anywhere. So we can reconnect with this who have gone at any time, instantaneously. This is the connection, this is the spirit connection. See? So it's only, this is totally different territory, like if sometimes I just don't want to bring it in to confuse matters, but just worth mentioning is that it only with regard to, let's say, some more extreme expressions where the soul somehow failed to depart, let's say, and there is like caught in between realms, and this is like the realm we speak of, we refer to often as a ghostly realm, simply because it's disembodied, but it somehow remained in the recesses because of some kind of energetic, let's say, there's something didn't quite work out, something didn't quite compute properly, some kind of like transition didn't take place. Maybe there were too many attachments. Maybe it was this, funny enough, just to throw it out there, in many indigenous cultures, and likewise in certain civilizations, there is this belief that if someone dies too suddenly, like from the cataclysmic event, like natural, like, I don't know, explosion of the volcano, earthquake, tsunami, that prompts greater possibility for being trapped in a ghostly realm. This is how it's believed. I don't know if you had heard the phenomenon in Japan after the Fukushima. It's widespread in Japan, and it's supported by belief, culturally shared belief, that the people died so fast, so instantly. So there was this kind of, what trapped them in the pockets of space-time. So this, in turn, also links your two questions now, right? Like could be spoken of as a bridge. The reality of the situation, the reality of it all. What is real? What is unreal? What is more real? This is very, very, I would say, subtle and important to understand once and for all. That everything as real as we give it a reality. So it's not at all correct to say something is real on the account of because we collectively agreed that this is real. To some degree, yes, because by collectively agreeing on something, the consensus begin mold this into something which at least appears as more real. But in terms of the reality of the situation, what is real or unreal is a matter of perception. So in other words, everything can be dismissed as unreal if we are to adopt this kind of attitude, see-through attitude completely. At some point, it begins to feel completely ephemeral, completely, almost like walking through the walls, putting hands through matter. On the other hand, that what seems made out of thin air, as it were, can be as real as the three-dimensional reality we share through perception and senses. Why? Because this all boils down to consciousness and nothing else. Everything here is made out of consciousness. Everything, as it were, made out of the same stuff, made out of awareness. At the level that we now share in the waking state, every object has its density of vibration. Something has hard, something has liquids quality, hot, cold, right? That something is moist, something is dry, something is soft, something like this. So many different varieties, and this feels like if we call this reality. But the reality of dreaming is just as real. The reality of the void, of the deep sleep, is just as real. To what we give more importance? Of course, we give more importance to this waking reality of waking experience, because it's also where the experience itself takes place in the most vivid and shared manner. Everywhere else, it's all no longer shared. Like it's very rare if we can share the same dream. It's rather an anomaly. But right now, we're in the same room. We may have different perceptions, preferences. If you were to describe this room, you may emphasize something more, and I would emphasize something else. But there will be a lot of overlapped territory, more overlapped. Right? We will give our testimony. We will give our, let's say, how was this evening? Okay? Please describe that in minute detail. Who was that? What was it? Anything appeared strange. So, just like, the police report. But in a dream, it's your dream. In my dream, it's my dream. So that reality is no longer shared. But it is shared at the level of consciousness, because the consciousness is where all this is taking place. So this is something which may come across as paradoxical, but it's an important realization in terms of what do we call real? See? It's almost like what we give importance becomes real. And you can see how some fields of interaction, some fields of activity, some field like so important for some people that it has life of its own. But someone who comes from the outside, it's like it's like children playing sandcastles at the shore. That's much importance. Oops, sorry, walked over it just now. Right? It's like, I've been building it for hours now. It's so intricate. Every grain of sand here is like, so this, we could say that everything is a sandcastle, subject to tides, subject to movement of the sea. It will come and wash it away and turn it back into sand. turn it back into the substance out of which it is made, these particles, subparticles. But in the moment of that, when we are busy building it, it's become reality. So instead of dismissing that, this is actually an extraordinary area to understand how everything is real. It depends what we give the importance, what we give attention, and then we form it into reality. So we're sculpting it from behind the scenes, and then it becomes real. This is actually somehow squarely relates to the theme of this immersion and goes from there to what we really, really here stand for in a sense of what we consider real. And we stand as a humanity on the precipice of what we consider real or not. If all we consider real as, let's say, where the currently shared collective consensus, right, then all this is dismissed. It's that sandcastle which has no value. But enough people that begin to consider this to be real, then reality will begin to change. So this reality is not a given affair. None of us live reality. In fact, your question supersedes the unfoldment of some of the discourses. But since you've touched up on that, since you've brought it up, let's just maybe speak a little bit more to that. There is no such thing as reality per se. There's no such thing as, well, it's like that, objective reality. This objective reality doesn't exist independent from the subject who perceives that. And that what imprints the objective sphere. So it's just happened that in our day and age, it is so engrossed in this understanding that only that what can be seen, tasted, touched, smelled, and certain mathematical equations applied, so that it gives us sense of navigating ourselves in space, bending things towards our preferences, creating that what becomes the infrastructure for our lives, right? All this. And in no time we find ourselves living in the reality which is kind of becomes more and more and more severed from that what otherwise functions in unison, vibrates in in sync. So in other words, we already, like, this is another take on artificial intelligence. We're already running the danger of becoming more and more artificial in our own enterprise of being humans. Because we only settled on certain state of affairs. So whenever we hear something like, oh, the ancients did that, and we are like jaw-dropping, bewildering, there must be extraterrestrials. We humans are not capable of doing that. This is no. Back then, I'm not talking about just pyramids or this or that. This is important to understand, that what we share collectively becomes our reality. What we give life force in terms of our attention is molded into that, because these realities coexist simultaneously at many different levels, But 2 years ago, I was bringing the importance of decision-making in terms of that fork, which always takes us in certain onto certain trajectory, because each fork, like this decision or that decision, right? Which choice? And some very quickly need to be made. Others we ponder on, make plenty of time. One way or another, decision is made. The trajectory is here. then the point, another fork. Which decision to make, see? So we build this trajectory. So that decision here would have been a completely different departure. Completely different departure. We ventured into completely another. This Russian fairy tales speak about this character who goes there as a hero. He's there to do something. Like usually it's Ivan or Ivan the Fool, right? And he has to do like, and there's always, he comes and there's a threshold, you know? You go to the left, like the 3 roads, you'll lose your horse. You go to the right, you lose your whatever. You know, you go straight, you know. So like, it's this decision, which road to take. And this is happening at every step along the way. Every step. From such decision like coming to this immersion or not. Right? Okay, you're here and you're not here. For some, it will be just yet another immersion. For others, it will spur to something else. These decisions lead to constantly something. But what I was drawing the attention to is how this impacts us collectively. So this continued reality is there, as it were, and we entertain this. And we, you know, people speak about the end of the world or not the end of the world. Is the Third World War will be happening, or is it already happening? Are we living amidst that? Like, if there's no war, the climate change, we are doomed. See this different perspective, different realities. No, things will sort itself out. No, things will not sort itself out. You know, we are driving in a super fast car straight to the wall to smash ourselves, like an example given a few years ago in terms of the functioning of our economy. It was delivered not like just like some kind of student from California, no, it was like by professor who was giving this analogy. Our economy, world economy, is based on that, driving with very, very great determination to the wall and at high speed. So there are realities at the very same time there frothing, and they all taking shape on the account of what we consider real. See? So this is the quantum soup, this is the quantum jelly, this is a quantum kind of realm that we talk to. So this, for example, now in translation to what happens to you in your sadhana, in your practice, in your experiences. Is it real? Is it not? Are you imagining it? See? Reflect now on this, what has been said in terms of what is real is a subject to perception. We give it importance, it will become real. It will become real. We don't give it importance, we shift our attention, then that will wither away, something else will become more real. It's always like that. It may feel literally made out of thin air, totally and utterly etheric. But because a sheer attention gives it a life, that's what is beyond comprehension of the average mind. That's what, like when mystics work from different dimensions, this is all called mysticism, it's mystical. But it's also could be explained and supported by the same logics out of which, let's say, computers are made. The same thing. How can computer display all this and that? And how is it working? How is it possible even? In the same way, what considered to be mystical aspect of reality is a reality for the one who lives it. And for the one who lives it, he lives that reality completely and utterly. And he can step in and out of different realms at will, at ease. without having to go through some transfiguration, some kind of shape-shifting. So this is with regard to what is real. What to give importance, that's different. What to pick from that gamut of these experiences. You see? Soon as you come across these doubts in terms of your ability or the value of these experiences, or whether you really can, am I worthy of that? Is it? Then there and then you're undermining this, you see? By virtue of that quicksilver-like quality of consciousness. It's constantly fluid. It takes any shape. So like any shape it takes, and so because it takes any shape and you can't take it, that how your reality is formed. It is informed by this very, very mental, emotional vibrations with which you use as that mold. You see? So knowing that, you become much more aware in terms of your predisposition. So therefore there has to be something to lean on. You see? So whenever something comes as an undermining thought, you are like a good gardener. I will allow this branch to grow because I know this gives flowers, but this is just going wild. It's a climber, it's a creeper, and it's just going to shoot up. Rose is a creeper. Rose is a wild bush. But rose trimmed mercilessly produces extraordinary flowers. And the skillful gardener, or simply experienced, knows this shoot up mercilessly can be cut. Certainly all the dead ones are cut there so they don't waste the time. But even those who look green and bushy and everything, it's just going to go into that which is not producing flower. It's just going to go somewhere to find a way to climb. Trim it. This is what it means. It's your garden. You decide. You, the architect and the sculptor, sculptress. See? What to give importance. Was there something else that towards the end that I have?
That there's this psychic tendency to take those experiences and turn them into something that's not very, not good, competitive, or thinking that now I'm better than others, even though they're also myself. But it's
we talked about it before. Yeah, I remember you brought that something very similar. So if you recognize this, right? Otherwise question would not even come. It will be a blind spot. You recognize that, so what's the deal then? You know that when it comes, this and I'm better. But remember my answer back then? I actually did not discourage you. I encouraged you. I said that there's nothing wrong in having that healthy measure of understanding that not everything is equal. Everything is consciousness, everything is awareness. Every one of us is an expression of that oneness, all without exception. But within that, there is also certain qualities that play themselves out. So it's not on the account of superiority versus something superior versus something inferior, but it will be a folly to disregard that what's simply known as qualities. Qualities. Yes, when Salvador Dali went to the exhibition in Paris, not exhibition, one of those hanging outs where all the movers and shakers, all the famous, and he wanted to shock. This is where all the greats were hanging out. So how can you shock? And so he doesn't have money much, and so he borrowed some kind of like whatever, a suit and everything. And of course, it will be Paris. And people will be very, very well dressed. You know, they'll be wearing decorations, they'll be wearing diamonds, they'll be wearing precious stones. It was a high society event, art event. The women will be smelling the most, precious perfumes, and men. So he took some really nasty stuff and made his own perfume. Donkey's urine, some kind of nasty rotten flesh of a rabbit, mixed it all, smeared his whole outfit. So he was like, and entered there. See? So he wanted to make a statement immediately there and get going. I'm giving this as an example, is he wanted to highlight and contrast by virtue of its opposite. So we may talk about the oneness and equality of everything, but we still use sandalwood and whatever precious ointments to rub into our skin, right? And we're not going to do the Salvador Dali on a daily basis to sort of like walk around and pretend that this is somehow all of equal quality. No. So this understanding is where abandoning this common sense is detrimental. You see? So if you understand some way, if you are in, let's say, in the experience of, like, we talked about it, like people don't understand about, let's say, what you do, what you dedicate your life, well, you feel, okay, they're stupid, and I'm much wiser. Quite frankly, there's nothing to say, because he can turn around and say, well, actually things are very simple because they are stupid. Just playing still something which is like, but of course, it should be accompanied by a sense of also some kind of second wave, the wave of empathy. They don't know better. That's all they know, that's what it is. So let's not waste our time. See? But now I want to add to this something else. The important quality is that it's not about how you feel in terms of, oh, I'm feeling this snooty, snobby, superior, and in turn that doesn't make you feel good about yourself, because you catch yourself feeling that, means you're lacking in that equanimity, lacking in that empathy, lacking in that sense of, that real kind of connection that all of us are human beings and all of us are kissed by spirit in equal measure. It just depends how it transpires, how it displays itself. But something else is important here. You see, what needs to be fostered, it's the audacity to claim the birthright. That's what's important. The courage to claim, that is important. You see? Not I'm superior or I'm inferior. It's that pendulum there still. But the true state of affairs, see? So this is like none of us have problem and say, I'm Mary, or I'm John, or I'm Peter, right? And I have this and that. And after like most rudimentary investigation, we discover that all this is totally and utterly arbitrary, if not untrue. Whereas the reality of us as a spirit, eternal consciousness, awareness, is a matter of our experience, daily even experience. The continuity of it all is only possible because of that fact. And yet we're somehow not audacious enough to declare that. You see? So this is why, at least when Jiddu Krishnamurti was like in all these schmoozing kind of events where he went, when he went like, when people introduce it, when people meet each other, what do you do? And of course, what do you do? At least at the time when he was active, when he was alive, it's a kind of a common thing. I remember that in London. What do you do? Or what do you do for a living, right? It's a kind of like a normal thing to ask. So what do you do? Hi, I'm so-so, I'm so-and-so. So what do you do? And he would say, I meditate. Back then, I meditate. So, all right, so is that a new company? Is it a new business? What is it? So that is by far more important than being caught in this, you see, that psychological kind of internal dilemma. Because when you realize this fully, that you are awareness, then everything is seen in the light of that awareness. So the possibility to see someone in inferior light is impossible, because you perceive everything by virtue of that very light. So everyone becomes the reflection of yourself, some that you feel like close as the t-shirt, others just doesn't feel as close by virtue of this, what locally plays itself as these preferences. But even though you still recognize that the mere fact of recognizing anything is possible because it is illumined. So this is where that subject-object dynamic, that tension, is lit at both ends. It is lit. So what really is happening then is that what illumines, right, in this case, the differences, unifies these differences. You don't fail to see the differences. You don't fail to recognize the differences. But you recognize all these differences because of the light of your awareness. See? So it takes no time to feel all this is yourself. So that's what it is, you see? I am that. I am that. It's the first. It's the first pronouncement. I am that. And all this is that. See? First, you are illumined by your own light. It's the most intimate affair, first. And then you recognize that light reflects everywhere, that same light. See? So that in this, let's say, great sayings, it's this recognition, it's that intimate recognition is accompanied by the recognition of seeing yourself everywhere. First you see yourself within yourself. And then you suddenly see, well, actually, everything is myself, not just I'm myself. These are degrees of that realization.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam.